right, everyone, we are going to look at what an actual lesson looks like. So I'm going to pick this article for Ms. Kaminsky's class, Were You Born to be a Sports Star? A genetics test used to determine whether kids are likely to become sports stars. I picked this article because I know the biology teachers are looking at genetics right now. So I'm going to come over here and click Start Lesson. You'll notice that there's still the curriculum key, the NC standards, and the strategy lesson that you can use as well. So when this first starts, you'll see a bunch of tabs up here at the top. The ones that are dark blue, the one that you're currently on, the before reading poll, the article, activity, after reading poll, and the thought questions, these are what is considered the 5-step literacy routine that all articles have. You will also see poll results, a math link, a stretch article, and a stretch activity, and we'll talk about each one of those. But every time a student goes into an article, you will see a poll. Now, you can spend as much time on this as you want to. You can have students just go in and do it themselves. It's kind of like an attention grabber. You can read the question and you can talk about it with everyone. It is completely up to you. But students can pick yes or no, for example, here, and they can explain why they voted the way that they did. After they do this, you can click on the article itself, and this is what comes up. Now, I told you in the last video that whatever Lexile is showing here, that is the level of the article that you're going to see. So this article right now is showing at a 1280 Lexile. And you can see that although it does have the big spaces in between the paragraphs, it's a pretty good size article. So let's just look at what happens, however, if I change it to a 520 Lexile. You can see the article automatically becomes much, much shorter. The paragraphs are not nearly as long, and the wording, if you were to go through and have read the first one and compared it to this one, the wording is much simpler. If you want to take it down to the 250 level, you can see it has become even shorter still. The sentences are very short. You've got a lot of links here. If you click on one of the links, it will show you the dictionary definition. Students can click on those right away, and it just changes depending on the Lexile level. So if Ms. Kaminsky had a child at this level, she could see what this child would read versus what a child at a different Lexile could read. So let's go back to the 1280 Lexile that we were originally working with. And you don't see nearly as many blue links with vocabulary terms. That makes sense because of the Lexile level. So before we go much further, let's just look at a couple things that we're seeing right here. Since this is the teacher screen, you have answer keys to the activity questions, the link to your curriculum key again, graphic organizer, your standards, your strategy lessons. These are the same things that were on your home screen. You have vocabulary here. You can play. The students can click on play and hear the words.
Circumspect. Adjective. Careful to consider all possible circumstances and consequences.
This is extremely helpful for our struggling readers and our ELL students. You see here extras. If you click on map, for example, it will show you that since this article was written in Chicago, Illinois, it shows you a map where that is. If you were to do a writing activity with this, it will show you a very, very basic rubric. English teachers would definitely want to redo this, I'm sure, but it is something to get you started. And there is a puzzle activity, but for some reason it's not working with Chrome, which is interesting. You see a little blue circle in between each of these paragraphs, and this is a fantastic thing that Achieve 3000 does. If you click on this blue circle, you'll see reading connections. One of the best reading strategies is to have students summarize paragraphs, especially if the reading is very long. So what a child can do here is after they read this first paragraph, they can click on the blue circle, click on summarize, and they can jot down any ideas that they have. They can click on generate questions, and they can type out any questions that they might have and click save. And they could also set the purpose. And this will provide them with a little prompt that they can write in. This one actually says, consider the different opinions on this genetics test. What side do you agree with? So maybe after reading the first couple paragraphs, they can put down that they agree with the side that supports it. Maybe by the end of the article, they have changed their minds, but they can jot their thoughts down here. It is a way to annotate the article as you read it, which is a fantastic reading strategy. You also have your highlighters right over here, so you can click on the blue highlight and hopefully it will stay. There we go. So now everything is highlighted. If I were to click on the yellow one and I want to highlight that sentence, highlight it, click the yellow, and then I want this sentence, I highlight it and I click the green, and there we go. If you come to this little picture right here, it takes everything that you highlighted and it puts it into one window, which is absolutely amazing. Then you can control copy that to another text. So when you are having students pull evidence from an article to support an opinion, this is how they can do it. And then if you click the button that looks like it has no highlight right there, it'll ask you if you want to remove all the highlights, and you can click yes. Down here at the bottom, if you wanted to assign this article to the student, you could do it from here. We're going to talk about assigning articles a little bit later. But after the student is done with the article, they can either click the button at the bottom or they can click the button here that says activity. And this is where the questions are. Now, on your Fast Facts sheet, it points out to you that students get 2 tries when they answer questions, but it is only the first attempt that affects their Lexile score. And to get a positive effect on your Lexile, a student has to score 75% or higher on the first attempt. So if a student goes through and just randomly picks answers, it is not going to help them at all, obviously. But if a student takes their time and they end up with overall a 75% grade or higher on their first attempts, then that is what's going to positively affect their Lexile. So 75% on the first attempt is really what we're shooting for. If you click, go to the after reading poll. Now that you've read the article, do you change your mind? And then you have the thought question. You may or may not want to assign the thought question every single time. It kind of just depends on the level of your class and what you want to do. With the activity, the questions, Achieve 3000 will grade that for you. But with the thought question, which is a writing activity, since it is subjective, you will have to grade that for yourself. It does have good questions here. It tells the students some ideas of what they can include in their answer. Write 3 paragraphs, introduce their claim, distinguish the claims, use the words elite and induce if you can, which is fabulous vocabulary there. And it just gives the students ideas of what they can do here. We'll talk about thought questions a little bit later. This isn't something that you need to really worry about right now unless you just have those higher level classes that you really want to make them have this stretch. Achieve 3000 says that out of all 5 of these steps, these first 5 here, the 2 that really matter the most are the article and the activity. Those are the 2 that are going to get you the most bang for your buck. Those are the 2 that are going to affect the Lexile scores. If you keep going, however, you will see poll results. You will see what your class has voted if they have done this, and you will also see worldwide results, which is interesting. All articles try to have some type of math tie-in to it. You may or may not want to mess with this. This is how math teachers can get involved a little bit. But this one tells you one way to find distance between 2 points. And then they have a question that relates to the article. If a top athlete runs between these 2 points, so on and so forth. The stretch article, every single student will have access to the stretch article regardless of their Lexile level. The stretch article is what the article was printed at originally. This is an original copy of the article here. You may have a class that can read this fine, you may not. It is suggested that with the stretch article, you guide the class through this, you read it together. This is where you can model how to go through articles. If you want to just do a whole class activity one day, you can come over here to the stretch article and you would guide all your readers through this regardless of their level. And then you would have an activity that goes along with that stretch article. So the stretch article and the stretch activity go together, and depending on your class level, you may want to walk them through this each time. And that is about it on what the five literacy steps look like for each article.